Welcome back to Cool High Interviews, now number 17. Today we're joined with Barney and Ben. And thank you guys for coming on. I know, Barney, you briefly mentioned you've got a busy time of your life in the moment. So thank you for sparing the time. But we'll go straight to you, Ben. Why don't you not introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about who you are before we dive straight in.
Yeah, so I'm Ben. I am 27. I live in London, and we might talk about this a bit more later on. But me and Barney have just started a little running business, which, so yeah, I'll save it. We might talk about that a bit more. But I used to be a teacher, and now I'm doing that.
Barney?
Yeah, so I'm also 27, just last month. Also live in London, which is helpful given that we're doing this business. But yeah, similar story to be honest, although slightly different schools that we taught at. I used to be a teacher as well, and stopped doing that at the end of last year, and have been doing various different things since. But the main thing probably in more recent times is working with Ben on this business. So yeah.
Well, obviously, yeah, we'll dive into the Two Blokes Running, as it's called, a bit more. But I just thought, literally, I followed this. I can't remember how it came up. It just came up ages ago, and I was like, it was when you were doing your 2 kilometer challenge, and it was like the first day. I'm pretty sure I remember it not being very close.
Guilty. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
me.
I think it was one.
I struggled for a long time. It was not impressive.
I don't think I could do it. I'd like, because I just normally go out for a run completely without a watch and just run it. I don't think I'll be very good. But was it? I didn't really realize it was like you guys were Christian or anything, and then I saw the was it the rundown? I think you did like a rundown episode, and I was like, and I was watching it, and then I saw like I was launching through, and then I asked you. It was I can't remember the exact question. It was something about like what do you do in your free time or something. And she like enjoyed the running, spending time with God, and then I read the description, like the caption under the post, and it was talking about like. Well, I'll talk about faith as well. I was like, wait, hold up. This is actually pretty cool because I'm always like, I love being able to bring in running and faith together because I think there's stuff for like football and faith, like there's Bridge the Gap, there's Ballers in God, there's stuff for football and faith, there's stuff for like actual sport, like Christians in sport, there's other stuff like for actual sport, but there's not much for running. And I recently, well, actually, I say that a few months ago, we had it was actually a few months ago now. I don't know if you know Simple's Hammersmith. We did a run with Christ, which is like an American run club thing. We went up there and we had a run club. Literally, it was a one-off, although hopefully it comes back soon. But it was an opportunity to bring running and faith together. And just want to talk about a bit about you guys. Firstly, your individual faith, where like what's your journey in faith been, and then we'll sort of go on a bit into how you what you want to do, whether you want to bring them together more, and what inspired you to start Two Blokes Running. But let's firstly start with, we'll go back to you, Barney, if that's all right, a bit about what your faith means to you, what your story and faith was individually to you.
Yeah, that's great. So I was brought up in a Christian household, which is great. Very grateful to my parents for all the example that they set for me. And probably when I was about 12, 13, was when I sort of realised that this faith couldn't just be my parents, but if I was in, then I need to be in myself. So I gave my life to Jesus at that point. But then inevitably, like, school has its ups and downs when you're trying to be a Christian but also fit in, and like playing lots of sport and getting in, different crowds, like just sort of seeing like looking back, just seeing myself sort of sometimes trying too hard to fit in when actually like that wasn't necessarily what I believed. So I found sort of summer camps like New Wine and later on like Focus super helpful for me in my faith, just like growing Christian friendships. I didn't have loads of those like necessarily at school, so like having like strong Christian friendships, especially with other boys, really helped me in that regard, and seeing how other people are living their lives. Yeah, uni was also super helpful just to propel that even further. And yeah, been learning ever since. It's been great.
Amazing. That's actually crazy. The fact you're mentioning summer camps, I've literally had a summer packed full of summer camps. I was helping lead a kids one, then I was at one called Satellites of Youth, and I've literally just come back from Big Church Fest. So it was packed. But no, they're so amazing. I love the fact that I love being around other Christians, just a chance to meet other people, like you're saying there. Sometimes you have environments where you struggle to be yourself, maybe mainly because you're surrounded by non-Christians as such. The conversations aren't very Christ-like and the behaviour is not very Christ-like. And it's like, especially sport as well, it's a hard one. A lot of the sports cultures tend to be not very Christ-like. I remember someone I had on the podcast played for American football at Birmingham University, and he was saying how actually through his being strong in his faith, he managed to start a Bible study in his group. But it was bringing Christ into sport. I think there's a fire there, and it's bringing it on there. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, in some ways, kind of similar. I also grew up in a Christian family. I'd say probably showed slightly less interest than Barney through my teenage years. So at school, definitely, I probably would have still called myself a Christian just because my family were.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of had the opposite problem to a lot of people where they maybe do have a faith but don't want to talk about it. I was kind of pretty happy people knowing I was a Christian but didn't actually really believe any of it myself. And also didn't really live it out. And then I'd say it was first year at university. A friend brought me along to a few church things, and particularly this kind of weekend away, and heard an amazing set of talks by a guy called Stephen Foster, who's now the vicar of St Aldate's Church in Oxford. And yeah, I was just completely persuaded by it. And he kind of spoke about how you really grow in faith through obedience. And I think until then, I'd always had it as kind of an optional add-on to my life. Like if it was convenient, I'd call myself a Christian. If it wasn't convenient, then I'd ignore it. Whereas he was kind of saying, and I was kind of wondering why doesn't my faith feel as exciting as sort of what it seems to be for some of my siblings and friends and things like that. And I think that talk just really struck me that we kind of need to be obedient, and the more we kind of suffer, give things up, really kind of live alongside Jesus, then actually the more exciting faith gets and the more real it starts to feel, and having a proper relationship with Jesus. And yeah, I'd say that started in my first year at uni, and it's kind of grown ever since.
Yeah, definitely. I think like what you're saying there about the convenience, I think that's such an amazing one. Like so often we just if I'm around a group of Christians, I'll call myself a Christian and I'll talk about my faith. But and then I find it really interesting what you're saying there actually about how you'd willingly say you're a Christian and willingly say like, oh yeah, I'm in a Christian family. My sibling, I've probably been like, I go to church on Sunday, but actually, it necessarily wasn't like an outwards like or like an inwards like it wasn't the faith. What the actual faith aspect wasn't really there. I find that's because like all the time you normally hear like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't really like to tell people about it. That's an interesting switch in it. But it's like it shows how so easily you can just be like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but is that just, oh yeah, I go to church on a Sunday, I pray maybe once a week. Is that actually what in your mind you've got a Christian as? But then you were going on to say there, like how the more you put in, the more, it's the cliche phrases, the more you put in, the more you get out. But it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I wasn't kind of going out telling everyone I was a Christian. I was more just kind of happy to, if someone asked, I'd say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't think I really knew what that meant until university.
Yeah, definitely. I think that literally that for me in the start was a period of my life where it's like someone asked, "Oh, are you a Christian? Do you go to church?" Yeah, but it wasn't like it was just like it was living through my parents' faith almost. Like it wasn't an individual thing. I mean, you both may have had that similarly, having grown up in a Christian family. It's like, well, it's your parents' faith. They take you to church on a Sunday. You pray before meals. That's the, like you say, grace. That's the thing you do. And then it's actually like you taking that step and switching it to, this is something for me. This is like, it's an intimate thing between me and God, no one else. It's actually what matters to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so let's go on to Two Blokes Running. Obviously, this is, I don't know how long you've been doing it for. How long have you been doing it for?
Probably.
We've worth clarifying as well at this point, because we probably should have been clearer. we're basically the Instagram's kind of separate to the business we're trying to start. So we've been trying to start a business which we can maybe talk a bit more about later. But
I'd love
I
to.
think we started when did we start, Barn? May?
It's about 3 months. Yeah, 3 months ago, probably. Yeah, and it kind
I
of
think
just
we had the
started
idea
from.
towards.
Yeah,
I was just saying, I think we had the idea towards the start of this year. We were just running together loads and doing some. We always like kind of pushing ourselves and thought we may as well start filming it almost just as a bit of a joke for our friends.
Yeah.
And we thought we kind of knew we might be starting this business, so we were talking about it. And we thought it won't do any harm to have a bit more of a social media presence at that point because neither of us actually had Instagram. I think we existed on Instagram, but didn't have
yeah,
it downloaded or anything. Hadn't been on it in years. So
very inactive
we were
account.
we were pretty new to Instagram when we started the running thing. So we've just been working it out as we go along.
Oh wow. I'm so intrigued by this business. I want to know more. Do you want to talk about it now, or do you reckon it will come in a bit more later?
We can go now. You go for it, Bum.
Go on, let's hear it.
Yeah, so well, there's a little route to how we got there. Essentially, the business itself is aiming to give people a reason to run. So you give them like the motivation to get out there and just do it when they might not otherwise, and do that through gamifying the whole running process. Instead of just going for a run because you feel like you should and it's the right thing to do, it might be good for your body or whatever. Actually, giving people like sort of I guess the positive sort of dopamine hits when they've gone for a run and they log their progress and they might unlock different features to sort of give them more of a purpose to their running, and through that not only providing some like motivation individually for them, but also hopefully we want to try and link it with some charities and give some charities a bit of exposure and also do some giving through that. So when you sign up to a run, part of your race fee would go to a charity, and then hopefully as you do more running, eventually we'll get to a point where then like the more you run, the more of that original race fee can go to charity. That's sort of like
Yes.
a goal that we would have at some point. Difficult to make it work, but that's the aim. But it's just like creating different reasons, like ways for people to be like, oh, it was worth it for me to run just like 1 extra kilometer today, or like, oh, I might as well run 2K because it will get me to the next milestone, but just gets people out and running. And I think for both of us, we've like massively appreciated running in our own lives, whether it's, you know, for faith or other, just for like mental health and just for fun, to be honest, to be with friends, socializing. And seeing like the positive impact in other people's lives as well. So just thought it'd be quite fun to start business in something we enjoy.
Yeah, and it's just worth saying the actual like gamified bit is we're doing these virtual running challenges, so you can go and run like the Pacific Coast Path or go and run the Camino or something, and log your progress as you go. So we're hopefully launching it fairly
Yeah.
soon in a few weeks. We've been building
Yeah.
the platform the last couple of months.
That's crazy. I love that. Just like, oh well, we wanted to encourage people to run, so we thought we'd just make a business.
Yeah.
That's such it's not a small way to put it, but that's very encouraging thing to do. I mean, like I think running is so amazing. I mean, like for me, definitely in a faith way and in a non-faith way of just being able to want me to get out of the house and get running. And like, yes, I'll admit I do it to a fairly high level. So there is sort of times where you have to run, like
Yeah.
because it's part of your training, it's part of your regime. But I think definitely there's some times when it's like, no, I actually really want to get out. Like, I want to just go for a run. I want to just relax. I know for me, definitely in my to faith aspect, and I sometimes when I go for a run, I just like have a bit of worship music on or something, or it's just even an amazing opportunity to pray, speak to God, and I actually find it so amazing sometimes to just like you can almost just have a conversation straight whilst you're running with God, and it's something just so nice about running out and just have it feels almost free. It just feels nice and relaxing.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me. Top tip for anyone listening is on some of your runs, ditch the headphones, because I started that at the start of last year, 2024. I did the London Marathon in April, so I did all my training for the kind of few months before that, and did all of it without headphones, just because a few people told me I never get any silence and solitude and need to get rid of all the distractions and stuff, and absolutely loved it. However many hours you're doing a week training for a marathon, all of that was just time with no distractions. Can't say I was praying for all of it, but definitely prayed for some of it. And even when I wasn't praying, it's just great to have a bit of like space from how busy life is. So if you're a runner out there, ditch the headphones sometimes.
Definitely. I think that's actually so interesting what you're saying there about we literally in this world now we rarely get any like solitude space or anything away from literally everything. Like you've always got your phone next to you normally or something, or a notification could pop up, or there's always someone could just come and get you, oh, can you help me with this? Well, you can always be influenced by the environment around you. I just think there's something special about just leaving it all, leave it all at home, leaving, and it's almost leave all the like physical things, but it's almost leave the mentals, like leave the stress, leave the stress, leave the worry at home, and just get out. So it's not just leave the physical; it's leave the I don't know what the word is.
No,
Leave the
definitely.
leave like mental stuff at home as well,
Yeah.
and get out and go for a run without any of it.
Definitely. No, what you're saying about stress, I think is bang on. Whenever I'm stressed, I just go out for a run, ditch the headphones, and yeah, it's so good. Gives you a bit of space.
Definitely. Well, I can't believe I didn't know. No, because I had. This is such a cool case kept under the radar at the moment. Obviously,
Yeah, coming soon.
yeah, amazing. But I think just one brief thing coming back to because obviously your two blokes running thing started obviously just as you guys were probably you're probably like, oh, let's have a little laugh, just a little video as you're running along. Oh, who can run a kilometre the closest? Simple. And you've actually like seeing it now progress. Obviously, you've got. I'll be honest. I was looking for it beforehand. I'm lost with all the different challenges there is at the moment. like there's like I think you're chasing buses. There's like the rundown. You're running with guests. It's like I was like, whoa, but that's obviously gaining a bit of traction. Let's be honest. That's getting up a bit. You probably I can't remember the guests you found, but you've had a few guests to run with. How do you find? Obviously, I said we get on this. How do you find? Because especially with social media influences lots of people's lives nowadays. People base what they do, how they act, off social media. They will, if they like, this is where this would help your app, of course. Obviously, like people see what run 1 kilometer, it encourages you. People want to do it. It influences them. How do you guys find? Because obviously you were both saying that your faith plays a big part in your life. How do you find your faith corresponds to the two blokes running at all, or does it correspond, or would you like it? No, sorry, I've asked about 4 questions in one question there. Let's break it down real quick. Firstly, let's start with: does it correspond? How do you find it currently? Currently, but what focus on like the current at the moment?
Yeah. Do you want to go for it, Barney, or shall I?
You go ahead. I'll jump in if there's anything.
Where would I start? I think the sort of big picture, it was definitely one of our main motivations when we started it. So when we were chatting about should we do this silly little Instagram, that was one of the big factors. Was like it would be a cool way to talk about faith. And I think we said in our first ever kind of introductory video, we want to get loads of guests on, and one of the main motivations for that was to get loads of Christian guests on to basically just talk about their faith. And that's one of the, you mentioned the rundown earlier. We do these kind of interviews while running, and we try and get a real mix because we want to hear from people who believe all sorts of different things. But one of the questions we always ask is, what's kind of important to you and what drives you? And we've had some really interesting answers, whether they're Christians or not. But often when it is a Christian, then they'll talk about their faith, and that's cool. I think we have plans in, well, not too far, I say in the future, kind of just ongoing plans to bring faith in more and more, which we've been discussing how to do that and how to make it kind of, people have obviously started following and watching it because they love the running challenges and stuff. So we want to try and combine the two. That's sort of what we're known for and what, has gained quite a bit of traction. But we want to bring faith in. So far it's been in lots of small ways. We get loads of comments about my Christians in Sports shirt, or about talking about, we did some stories about how we won't be posting on Sundays and things like that. So it's been in kind of small ways so far, but hoping to bring some more in, and we've got a few ideas for challenges that will be coming soon that might kind of combine both a bit. Does that sum it up a bit? Okay, Barney, missed some stuff.
Barney, got anything you want to add?
No, I think that's pretty well encapsulated. I think it's one of those where, on the one hand, like they could be quite separate things, and I think it's important for us to actively think about ways we can introduce it in, but also hopefully just the fact that it is a big part of our lives. Like, as we start, as these social media channels go on, I think it's inevitable that people see a bit of your personality, and hopefully like that would involve us bringing in our faith as well, and that becoming evident in how we conduct ourselves, etc.
Yeah. I think one of the main things you guys were saying there, and I found really interesting, actually, you were saying how you do the small things at the moment, but you have plans to add in a bit more. I think there's actually so much power in the small things. Like when you said there, like you don't post on Sundays, I got reminded of, hopefully you've definitely seen it, Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
And how, amazing film, but how the main character just doesn't, I think he doesn't want to, he refuses to race on a Sunday or something, summarizing basically. And I think there's small things like that which almost spark a conversation, like Christians in sport. You're wearing the t-shirt, you're saying, like, imagine if you wear maybe a Bridge Gap football shirt with a massive question mark on it, which is the now for, it's like, what is that? And it's those sorts of things. It seems small, but actually it's through the small stuff which conversations are sparked, queries. Like, it's like you're saying that you've had people commenting. I don't know what they've commented. I haven't read all the comments on your post beforehand. Bit of research, but I presume it's probably a bit of like, what's this shirt? Oh, what's like, oh, nice shirt. Where's it from? Or something like that. Like I've got a British Gap football shirt, and it's based off an old Arsenal kit, and so many people are like, oh, that's quite a cool kit. Where like, what's that shirt from? It's like, oh, it's not a football team. It's a charity, and it's subtle things. Like so often, I think people think to be able to incorporate, say, your faith in a podcast, or not a podcast, we're on a podcast, incorporate your faith in your social media thing. So often people think, oh, it needs to be in a mate, like you have to have in the description like 2 followers of Christ or something, and then you have to like to have posts no, but you can do it through like the subtle, the mundane, the small things. Because there's power. Is there a Bible verse about like there's power in the mundane? I don't know. That just there might be, there might not, or that might just be saying. I don't know. That came to mind, but like there's power in like the small things, and through doing all what you do, there's so much you could bring in. I think it's almost like of a word as encouragement as such, but like the small stuff has so much power. Like there's so much power in not posting on a Sunday. Like a small thing that's a real encouragement to me. Actually, what you said there, just not posting on a Sunday is like, so many people could just see that as, oh, they haven't uploaded today. Why not? But actually, and then you look, oh, it's a Sunday. Oh, I forgot they don't post on a Sunday. And maybe it may just be something like, oh, they don't post on a Sunday because they're Christians. But actually, what does that mean to them? Why don't they post on a Sunday? And actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you that question now for someone that maybe is listening and doesn't quite understand. Why, as a Christian, would we not post on Sunday? Or would Eric Liddell not race on a Sunday? What does that mean to us if you wouldn't be right to answer that?
All yours, Barney.
Well, I guess, lots of different reasons for it. But I think the main one for me biblically would be just like God, made us to work, but he also made us to rest. It's very clear in the Bible that we should be taking a day of rest, a Sabbath, at least once a week. And so I think, if we're going to live out our lives following how Jesus wants us to and how the Bible teaches us to, then we can't just pick and choose what parts of the Bible we're going to follow and which parts we're just going to ignore. And so I think, it's actually very hard to not just work every day of the week, especially when you're doing social media or you're starting a business or something like this, because it's like there's always something to be doing. And it's not like, when I used to be a teacher, I'd work sort of Monday to Friday, or, if you have, sometimes you do things on Saturdays, but it's very clear. And so it's easy to take Sundays off, whereas now it's a bit harder. And I think just like, especially for us where we are, it's super important that we have those boundaries in place and just we say like, no, we're going to trust that actually not working today, that realistically, like the success or failure, whatever that looks like, of our business is like from God. It's not from our like efforts alone. And so like, what better way to honor that really than to giving a day to Him?
Yeah, that reminds me what you were just saying, Barney. We have a little group of us with a few other friends. It's a kind of accountability quiz group, and I remember one of the boys in it challenging us all on taking a proper Sabbath because we might not be doing our normal job, but we were doing all sorts of other things and not really resting. And he said, um, sort of taking a proper Sabbath is trusting that God can do more in 6 days than we can do in 7. And I think that's kind of the key for us. It was actually because the first time we did the first story on the Sunday after the first week of doing the daily challenge, which is where the Instagram kind of took off a bit. And like day 3 or the Wednesday had 1 million views, and we were kind of catching a bit of a wave with it, which is obviously what you want. And the algorithm kind of rewards posting daily, and we were doing a daily challenge, so I know people were expecting it on the Sunday, but we wanted to kind of get that in early that we weren't going to do that, so we just did a story saying the daily challenge will be back tomorrow, but we won't be posting on Sundays because we think it's a day for God and a day for rest. And it was interesting, we did actually, because we can see all the stats on our Instagram, we did have a few people unfollow us that day. We had much more follow us, so that's kind of, it was still kind of, I don't know, growing, but it is interesting. Like people did unfollow, and in some ways it was a risk. But I think as a Christian, it's just not a risk because the Sabbath is from God, and I mean, the Instagram only grows when He wants to bless it, or everything we do only really grows when He wants to bless it anyway. So, it didn't feel like a risk.
Yeah, I think that's really. I love what you're saying there. What obviously people unfollowing not the best thing, but like in the end of the day, what you're saying there about God's success, like with the business, with the social media, all of it. God's got a plan for it all. God has a plan, and God can do. I love that what you said. God can do more in six. What your friend said to you. God can do more in 6 days than we can do in 7. And actually, in the grand scheme, God's with us. I think God would rather we took the space on the Sunday to spend time with Him restfully and actually no business, no social media, no, and actually take a time to rest, go to church maybe, and actually spend community with other other family, even friends. Just actually be present. And so, because like so often for me, I mean, like for anyone with anything, so often you can just not be fully present. You can have something just the clogs whirring in the back of your mind, and it's so hard to be fully present, almost, isn't it? Like you've always got. I mean, especially if you guys come into like you're saying the business coming out soon in a few weeks, you've probably always got in the back of your mind like, oh, maybe I could change this, maybe I could add this, maybe this would work better. And it's like it is hard on a Sunday to just be like, just shut it all down. I mean, for my dad who's a farmer, he's always thinking about literally like, oh, the weather today, the crop today. And it's so hard to just shut it off for a day. It's not easy at all. But it's about being intentional and thinking, okay, right, I'm going to try my hardest today. Whether I'm fully successful or there's still a few things going in the back of my head, I'm being intentional. And I'm going to try. I think that is it intentionality? Yeah, that's a word. Like the intentionality behind it.
I think that's bang on. I think that's actually the perfect word. I think for anyone who's kind of struggling to get a Sabbath or a regular Sabbath in place, which has definitely been me most of the time, you can't just like hope it'll happen or assume and say, oh, kind of keep Sunday free, and you end up either doing some work or literally filling your day with constant seeing friends or whatever, which is also good and might be restful. But I think if you don't put in some specific time and have a bit of a plan, I now have because I'm so bad at it, I didn't put it in, but my wife put in our shared calendar Sabbath every Sunday so that I can't book in hang out with friends because otherwise I just would. So yeah, you need a plan. Same as with running. If you're not following a plan, you're not going to make as much progress.
There you go. I love that. I'm bringing that into running. If you don't have, but that is so true. That's the key. If you don't have a plan, there's not going to be much progress. That's small, short, but sweet. Love it. And I think what one thing briefly you were saying there as well, how when you social media, like when you posted that on your story, I forgot to mention this earlier. When you posted that on your story, you lost a few followers, and actually how, especially when you have, like, for me obviously with my podcast it's a solely Christian account, like that is the content, but when you have something which is a bit different, and especially the main focus is running as well, bringing in the faith side of it to it, there's always going to be the, oh, people are going to be like, oh come on, like, I'm not here for this, I'm here for the running. There's always going to be, but then I think that actually goes to, with us with faith, we can trust in God, and we know that, like, because some people could be like, oh, I don't want to bring my faith because it's going to lose, like, it could lose like 1,000 followers. It could lose. You never know. But that's through the trust in God. You're like, I don't want. Yeah, I want to. It may lose followers, but actually, at the end of the day, God's with it. God's alongside it. I'd much rather God's immersed in it, and the faith aspect of sides is in it, rather than it being like, oh, the faith's just there. Like, it's a side thing. I think that's so important. I think don't be scared, because so often people can get consumed in the numbers and stuff, and you can get, I mean, we can talk, let's talk about that actually. So often you can, like, the numbers, the views, the figures, I was presuming you guys have a business as well, like, you can so often get consumed in all the facts, the figures and stuff, but actually for us with a faith, it allows us to give it almost like an extra aspect to it, an extra look, a different level of, like, okay, maybe I'm not having success in all the numbers, or maybe I am having a ton of success in all the numbers, but actually, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for me in my faith? Like, it's almost a question we should be asking ourselves with a lot of, like, it may seem excessive to think with it, like almost everything we do, we should be asking, what does this mean for me in our faith? But the truth is, us as Christians, this is something we chose to invite God into our lives. We chose to do this. So actually, what are we doing from this? Like, how is this benefiting me and God? Like, how is this? And I think actually, when you accept that and when you choose, like, okay, I'm going to put on the story, we're not posting on Sunday because that's a day of rest. This is what God's called us to do. Actually, you're bringing God into it. You're showing people what God. And so what? You lost maybe 100 followers, maybe even if that. But, like, it's actually bring God in, and then you have God.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying about the numbers and stuff, we both found it hard at points in the last few months or couple of months with checking the numbers too much and being too like involved with it. And I remember as well in the early days when we did the daily challenge being like, why do Barney's ones get so many more views than me? And getting all sorts, that's mostly because he was just terrible at it, but it's, you start getting all sorts of like comparison, or even just, it's just not good for us to be scrolling and refreshing all day to see how it's doing. And I think we've actually got a bit worse at this recently because we've been off on different holidays and various things, but at least for the start, and once things get back to normal, we got in quite a good routine of praying during the day, and for all sorts of things, life, the business, but also for the Instagram, just praying that we wouldn't get too involved in the numbers, and also that we wouldn't be, feeling prideful about it, or just getting too up or down about it, basically, because it's all God's anyway. And we were kind of made it sound like when we were talking about the Sabbath thing that if you give everything to God, then it'll just go well, which isn't what we're saying, because it might not, and it might be that He takes it away. In some ways, that would be a relief, probably, but it's basically you give it to Him, He can bless it or He can not bless it, and when He stops blessing it, that's absolutely fine. Or if it goes on forever, maybe we'll still be filming ourselves running when we're 70 or something. Yeah, it just kind of taking the stress away from you and giving it to Him, and just saying, do what you want with this, is what we tried to kind of keep praying through. Because I think, well, I was definitely finding it hard. I don't know about you, Ben.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tricky, and like that comparison thing, it's just an almost like unless you act against it, is inevitable. Like whether it's between each other, which is like makes no sense because we're both in every single video. So like, there's absolutely no way that one of us is doing something better. But I found it particularly with like other people and being like, oh, how do our stats rate against like what they're getting and like what does this look like, blah blah blah. But I think the reality is like again, one of the things we've I'd say both of us on the same page about we'd rather be small and maybe even unsuccessful in terms of like the business flops and the running channel goes nowhere, that we've done it all with God than like massive, but like God's not in the picture. And yeah, I think you come into much bigger problems than just the success or failure of your business if you're going to go without God. So that's been our policy.
Yeah,
Definitely. That's so. I think that what you're saying there about you can come into much bigger problems if God's like not the present. I think, yeah, I think because I think for me, I'd almost like think for me, imagine like I've got the Christian podcast or just a random Instagram account, like say Two Blokes Running is like blown off completely. You're at like 300k followers, it's going amazing, and you have someone who like who a good strong Christian mate comes up to you and asks you, oh, how's God going through this? I think for me, that would hit a lot harder than actually it's been like it's at 5k and it's like and God's in it and it shows like I think that would, but that for us, well certainly for me, if I was in that situation, that would mean more to me. I think, but this goes back to the facts and the things. Like I know certainly for me, I haven't had any that have reached a million, but when you have even a small reel or something which does better, it's like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. But it's actually, I think for me, it's thinking about it in a sense of what does that 1,000, 6,000, whatever views mean? What does that mean? Rather than thinking that means, oh, tons of people have seen that. That means a million people have seen your account. That means maybe 10,000 have seen all your posts. That means maybe 5,000 have seen your rundown. Maybe that means, and then they've seen this, and then actually that means those lives have been inspired. Because I think it's as much as we say don't look at the facts and things. I think it is good sometimes to. I know it sounds like I'm contradicting myself a bit, but I think it is good sometimes to look at them a bit briefly, not to
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is like we are also trying to start a business, and we are also like, so and the running, like the Instagram has, as we say, like taken off to an extent in a way that we like really didn't plan for, like expect anything like that. It was sort of like a happy surprise to us in many ways. Um, but like also, if you're trying to start something, like you need to it's God doesn't say like, oh, just ignore everything and hope for the best. Like you still have to be active within it, and it's just about like putting in the boundaries and but like committing things to him in prayer and trusting him on them and like praying through the big decisions, rather than just like blazing ahead with what will get you the most money, essentially.
yeah, and also just when you were saying something about the views, like you don't know what impact different videos have, and we probably, if we were just trying to grow it and make it bigger, we probably shouldn't do the rundowns. If we look at the stats, they do much worse because they're like 2 minutes long, and everyone knows these days no one can has the attention span for that. And they're not kind of funny challenges that people watch. But you can have a million views on something which is just a silly like 30-second video, and that's cool that loads of people are watching it. And hopefully in small ways, as we said, we might be having impact, but you might have 1,000 people watch one of the rundowns, but kind of 50 of them ask questions about faith, and that's a much bigger impact. So we're just trying to have a bit of a balance where we're like wise with it, as Barn was just saying, where we do want to grow it, and obviously the more we grow it, the more people hear the stories when we then do talk about Jesus. So having a bit of a balance between, we want some content that'll kind of try to keep the momentum going, but some other stuff that'll then talk about Jesus and hopefully have more of an impact. So yeah, it's just getting a bit of a balance, I think.
I think that finding that balance is almost. I think that's the best way to do it, because I think so often you can think, well, I don't like God, but I think it's important because God doesn't always, like you're saying there as well, Barney. Like it doesn't. We don't. It's not. We give it all. Like we do give it all to God, but it's not. We then just give it to God and leave it. We're just like, all right, God, it's up to you now. Like I've given it to you now. It's your job to do it all. God calls us to go out and do for Him. Like I think of one of my favorite Bible verses in Mark, where God tells us to go out and fish for men. God's actually calling us to go and do the stuff. Like we come follow me, He says, and then go out and fish for men. It's not come follow me and you're done. It's like you come follow me, you give it to me, and then I give you other things to do through that. And it's like you don't just, oh God, I pray you'll help me with the business, and then it's like, oh, it's up to God now. Like it's God's job to do it now. We still have to actively do some stuff and almost go about it just whilst helping other people.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that Ben and I have often discussed is that we feel very blessed in terms of like you know, various gifts that we've been given and like you know our families and etc. And I think like similar to that, we just don't want to waste that. We want to make sure that we're using God's gifts wisely. And so to sit there and do nothing with them, would be a bit of a shame.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I mean, I think that's pretty much drawn the conversation to a beautiful end. I mean, unless you guys have sort of anything else you want to add in, any questions you want to ask, any like thing which come to mind you want to say, we could probably leave it there.
Can you give a little, very short summary of how and why you started this? Because it's really cool.
No, so originally I started this probably a long time ago now, about 3 years ago, but I started it just doing a few episodes by myself, and then I stopped for about a year because I just didn't have the motivation. I didn't have the consistency. I couldn't bring myself to just sit in front of my laptop, talk for about an hour because I was doing it by myself. And then I restarted it about a year ago now with doing these interviews where I had people come alongside me and interview them. I found coming alongside people firstly helped me to be accountable and help me learn more, because as much as I could just yap for like ages about the Bible, or just yap pretty much, like being able to learn from others, and this brings into why I do it, it's so much in the Bible, like so much of our faith we can learn from other people. We can be inspired by other people, we can be encouraged, we can be discerned from other people. Does that sort of, I don't know if that, but like they can help us learn, they can help teach us, and it's so much like in our Christianity, in our faith, we can sometimes think we're the only person in this situation. We're the only person going through this. We can be the only person succeeding in this even. Like you can think you're alone, but it's not true. Like if there's anything I learned from coming back from Big Church Festival this year, there's 35,000 Christians from all over, all walks of life, all different areas of life, all there worshipping the Lord. And I did a few interviews there, just sort of like quick ones, and actually hearing the array of people, but like also hearing the similarity in their stories. Like there's so many people out there to commune together. And I think the main reason I want to do this, the main reason I keep it going, is to encourage other Christians, help them learn from each other, and just to be able to come alongside each other and be like, you're with me in this, I'm with you in this, let's go through it together, let's learn together, let's encourage one another, and let's spread Jesus' faith.
So cool. Love it.
It's epic.
No, it's really cool. Hope it keeps growing and growing, and you can get some much better spoken and more exciting guests than us.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you guys have been amazing, and we'll leave it there. Oh, almost clicked leave.